Fife Property market update, and this is for the week commencing the 23rd to the 29th. And can you believe this is going to be our last November one? The month of November has flown by, but what that does mean is next week's show we'll be able to do a November roundup. So when we did the October one, it was really telling in the numbers, and we'll wait to see obviously what November looks like. Now, if you are a regular of these shows, you will see as we've gone through the weeks of November, there has been more buyers than there has been sellers. So it'll be keen to see what this week's figures show, but then also when we do the November roundup as well. So if you are thinking of selling within Fife, if you're currently on the market, thinking of buying, this is a great show to give you the real facts and figures and really discuss it. However, if there is anything at all, if you're watching this live or the rerun, comment, message, more than happy to chat with you. That's what we're here for. But let's take a look at last week's figures. So they should be up on the screen for you just now. And straight away off the bat, 77 new properties hit the market last week. And this is based off Rightmove, all agencies that use Rightmove across Fife. And you can see it's broken down into micro regions. But what you can see is there was 79 properties sold subject to concluded missives. So that again tells you, just like we've been seeing week on week out in November, there's more buyers out there than what there is properties coming to market. So when people think, oh, there's no point selling just now, it's quiet, people aren't buying, I might as well wait till spring, summer, that's the best time to sell. When Perry and I are going out to valuations, this is where we have to give a great insight into the marketplace and actually educate you and say, now is the best time to go to market. For the exact reason, as you can see here, week on week out, there has been more buyers than there has been sellers. And that's great for you as a seller, because what that means is there is less competition. When you have less competition, you then obviously stand a chance of one, getting a quicker sale, but two, getting a better price because there's more than people competing because there's less stock available on the market. And we can see that. Granted, these figures are lower. We have obviously been seeing in November, they've been in the kind of hundreds, low hundreds, but in the hundreds. But this is the first week where both instructed and sold are just double digits, but still had more buyers than sellers. Now, if you're watching this and saying, well, how can that be? It doesn't mean to say of the 77 that hit the market, they were the 79 that sold. That's not the case. It could be older stock that obviously is getting sold through and working our way through, which is also a positive as well and what we want to see. But as you can see, if we were to do the run through, so there was 8 new instructions within Cooper, 3 properties sold, 6 within East Neuk, 3 properties sold, and actually 6 instructions for East Neuk is actually average for what they actually instruct anyway. St Andrews 5 versus 4. Now that is lower figures than what we would like to see for St Andrews, absolutely, but that doesn't mean to say again there's anything to worry. Its own, which is great to see, absolutely. So that is all of last week's figures. Now, if you want to discuss that in more detail and you want to have a look through it, or you want to obviously discuss what your particular area and postcode looks like, reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to assist you and educate you a bit further on why now is the absolutely key time to sell. And actually, as we go on through this show, I'll be able to take you through a campaign that both Perry, myself, and Jim did. And it was all about why selling in this time is key, especially if you're looking to move in spring, summer. Because if you take into account your average selling time for different areas, and then as well what the conveyancing time looks like to go through, obviously, the legal part, actually, you do need to be on the market just now if you're looking to move within spring. We're already eating into the crucial time frame. So that is something. But absolutely, if you would like to discuss that in more detail, then please do reach out to us, drop us a message, call the office, and we would love to speak with you. So that is what was happening in the marketplace just last week. But please do look out for next week's show, because that's where we'll do the roundup of November. Now, if you can have a bit of a cast your mind back moment, when I did the October roundup, there was 524 new properties that hit the market within Fife just in the month of October versus 528 buyers. So it was 528 sales within the month of October all across Fife. So actually, in October, there was more buyers than there was sellers. And I think if I remember and I work out what we've been doing each week, we're probably going to be the same for November, which is why it's absolutely fantastic to get sold within this kind of season for your spring summer move. Now, somebody has mentioned that they are planning to move from Australia to St Andrews within Fife. St Andrews Market, now if you were selling, it'd be a different conversation. However, buying in St Andrews at the minute, you have a lot of stock to choose from. And because you have a lot of stock to choose from, and the St Andrews Market has been slightly difficult, that actually the ball is in your court as a buyer within St Andrews. You can use to your advantage, one, the fact that there's a lot of stock, but some clients have potentially been on the market for 6+ months. So that's where you have wiggle room to negotiate with your offer, because they will be looking to get sold, absolutely. To give you an insight into the St Andrews Market, there was a lot of change that came into place last year. So the ADS, so additional dwellings tax, if somebody owns a second home, it went from 6 to 8% last year. They then increased your second home council tax. So if you had 2 homes, your council tax was 100%. Then as well, there was change in legislation with Airbnbs. And as well, there's a new build development that started within St Andrews, and it's a David Wilson development. Quality luxury homes. However, they noticed how the market was performing, and there was a lot of different factors. So they were putting on really strong incentives. So example, at one point, they were actually covering your land and building transaction tax. So they were paying that stamp duty for you, which when you think of the value of their homes, that's potentially 30,000, 40,000 pounds that they were covering for you. So naturally, people went towards the new builds rather than a resale home. So that meant that a lot of stock hit the market within St Andrews last year and the start of this year and even the middle of this year, which average selling time, if you were selling in St Andrews just now, would be around 6 months. And you don't get as much offers over as you perhaps used to do in St Andrews, because there is a lot of stock and stock is sitting. But you're not selling within St Andrews, you're looking to buy. So this is where the ball is in your court, because you are able to have plenty of options, but also you can use it to your advantage when you are potentially offering on places, because some sellers might be desperate. They've maybe already secured their next home and they need to get moved on. They're also aware that there is a lot of competition, a lot of stock, so they could potentially take a lesser offer. Now, you might be thinking, why would she be telling you that? But we always like to say that we like to be open and honest with you. We like to give you the facts. And the facts is, any local knowledgeable estate agent that knows St Andrews know that it is a market where there is a lot of stock. And actually, we'd rather see that stock sell than it sitting there for any longer than it needs to be, because average selling time is around 6 months. So absolutely, if you are looking to purchase or sell within St Andrews, reach out to us. I am more than happy to have a more in-depth conversation with you. That is an area that I cover. That's where I value. I'm more than happy to have that conversation with you. So do reach out. But that is a St Andrews Market, and it'll be keen to see what next week's show tells us. And we see the monthly roundup of November for St Andrews. But yes, I went off on a bit of a tangent then, so apologies, but I could see comments coming in. But let's do a look at what we were doing last week as an agency with our activity. So this is where we have sold properties and also properties have concluded. So they have gone through that conveyancing stage. So the first property that we accepted an offer on last week was not in St Andrews. It was in Pitton Weem. So this was in the East Neuk of Fife. And this property was the top level here and also into the attic space. So it was a masonette split over 2 levels, 3 bedrooms, 2 receptions. However, there was then 2 further attic rooms, one of which is the gable end that you can see the window here. Another is kind of tucked in here without a window. And then this is a bedroom. So it was a 3 bedroom, 2 reception, 2 additional attic rooms. So fantastic potential. This was your garden space. This was your driveway. So it was a really spacious property. You were actually getting probably more floor space than what some actual 2-story houses get. And as well, from both the living room, second living room, and the bedroom, you got sea views as well, which was amazing. So it was a cracking property. It was on the market for offers over 180,000, and we secured a buyer within 2 weeks. As soon as this went on at pre-portal stage, we had people reaching out to us keen to view it. So we had a good couple of viewings on the property. There was also a couple of offers. And then obviously the seller decided on an offer. Now at this stage, we can't disclose what that number looks like. We have to let it go through the legals. However, it did have an offer accepted within 2 weeks, which is a fantastic result. Seller's delighted that they're able to move on. Likewise, the buyer is delighted that they've secured that property. And it's a family as well that's going into it, which is lovely. So that is the first sold. And then another one, different location again, and this is heading along to Buckhaven, and this is Den Walk. We've sold a lot within Den Walk and within Buckhaven. So just another one to add to the list. And this particular one was a 2-bedroom upper apartment. Popular buy-to-let area, as you know, it's where investors and landlords like to snap up properties. But actually, this one had a great price point as well, with the opportunity to expand the portfolio and add value. It was on the market for offers over 55,000. Landlord or investor is delighted that they've been able to secure that. So that was a fantastic result to get over the line. Then we will look at completed. So this is properties that have now gone through that conveyancing stage, and misses have been signed and new owners are in the property, so we can disclose what they went for. So the first property was in Windigate Road, Leven. This one was a 2-bedroom, 3 reception, 2 bathroom, detached bungalow in a sought-after location, off-street parking, garage, storeroom, extensive workshop. So it was a big footprint of a property, amazing size, so much space, while being in a fantastic location as well. Walking distance to the Letham Glen, the primary school. Of course, you can head down to the Fife Coastal Path, the beach, the golf courses. It had everything. It ticked all the boxes. And this one sold for 245,000, which was 5,000 over the home report value. The next one was actually a slightly different property, and again, different location. This was Sockhope Caravan Park in Creole. Now, this was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom seaside lodge, spacious open plan. It had the driveway, and with this particular one, you had a balcony that was right on the Fife Coastal Path. You didn't have any lodges in front of you, so you had uninterrupted views, panoramic, glass balustrade. It was a fantastic lodge, and actually this one sold for 120,000, so a good price point. It still had a good tenure on the property, and that's where it's absolutely key when if you are purchasing a lodge. Think about future proofing and think about obviously when you do come to resell, because actually, like with lodges, a bit like when you buy a brand new vehicle, as soon as you drive it off that forecourt, it depreciates. And lodges are just like that. They're not like when you purchase a property. With a lodge, because you only own the lodge and not the land that it sits on, and it has a tenure, they do go down in value over the years, because obviously your next person purchasing it doesn't get as long with it. So if you are purchasing it, think about that and think about what the future may look like for you. While granted, sometimes these things can't be helped, they do go down in value. So you also have to be realistic as well. Another thing with lodges is you can't get a mortgage on them. So you have to be a cash buyer, and you don't get to lend against obviously a property like that. What I will say is a massive positive though, and why people are leaning more towards lodges, is they take all that into account. However, you do not have to pay ADS on it. It's not seen as an additional dwelling. So actually you can avoid that 8% that you would need to pay while also being in the East Snook or perhaps St Andrews, because you've got Cairns Mill. So you can perhaps be within the popular areas, but you won't have to pay that ADS if it is going to be a second home for you. So you're getting the lifestyle, you're getting that escape, but you're not getting obviously the tax implications that come with it. So that's where people do naturally go towards lodges as well. And we do have another one. So if that does sound like something, it's perhaps something you haven't explored before or you're not too sure of, we do actually have another one on Sockhope. So reach out to the team, we can pass you the details, we can get you a viewing, and then we can talk to you in a bit more detail about lodges and what that process looks like. So that is the activity that we were doing last week as an agency. Now, before I round up the show, we will do a look through of the shows that have taken place. Now, I did mention the Selling in Winter campaign that, as I say, Perry, myself and Jim did on selling in winter and how to play to the season's strength to move home in spring. And how if you want to move home in spring, then now is the time to get live on the market. And this is where we take the time and we discuss it through with you, all the different pros and what you can be doing to get yourself ready. So the link will be in this post as well, so you can obviously watch through the show. It's roughly an hour and we're just talking, we're giving you great insights, hints and tips. And then another show that was done, as always, of course, you've maybe seen it. You've got Jim Parker, one of the UK's most successful property investors, and Richard Cook, our lettings director. Now, as always, they do the Wealth Creation show on a Monday. You might have seen they had a slightly different location this week. Beautiful backdrop because they are actually on Necker Island. So they came live from Necker Island and did the Wealth Creation show for you. And actually, it was about understanding the true investment return. And when it comes to investing, many investors focus on perhaps those headline figures, annual percentage gains, dividend yields, or capital growth. While these figures are absolutely important, they often tell only part of the story. True investment return goes beyond those surface numbers to capture the net benefit an investor actually receives, taking into account a range of financial and also behavioral factors. Now, the most basic measure of investment performance is the nominal return, which simply reflects the percentage increase in an asset's value over a period. However, nominal returns can be misleading because they do not account for inflation, which actually erodes your purchasing power. Now, that might be a lot of information for you to take in, but as I say, you had Richard Cook and Jim Parker on hand doing that full topic discussion, and what a fantastic place to do it in. So you can go back and watch that. And obviously, if you won't be watching it live now, however, when you are watching the rerun, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put it on the post and they still will come back to you, absolutely. But that is the shows that have taken place. That is our update for another week. It's been great to have people interacting. Somebody's even commented that they didn't know any of those details. I'm assuming that was when I was speaking about the St Andrews market. And it's obviously, that's all it is. It's a case of education, and it's a case of, if you are thinking of selling and buying, it's about using those key people who are local experts, can give you that knowledge, but also give you honest, real advice and guide you through that. And yes, absolutely, there will still be people that aren't aware of perhaps the different contributing factors in, say, the St Andrews market, or actually how positive and how great the Levenmouth market is because of the investment that went into the area last year. And actually, if you've not needed to know this information, then you're not expected to know, but actually it's about making informed decisions and seeking the right advice. So if there's anything at all, feel free to reach out. We are more than happy to chat with you. But for this week, that is me. I will see you next week for the exact same again. However, we will do the November roundup, so that'll be fantastic. And I'm sure we will see you throughout the week. All the best. Take care.